It's good. Good. You're fine. Yeah.
Okay, so who is the chair?
Dr. Taiwo. Yeah, this one.
Okay, Dr. Taiwo below. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Taiwo. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you.
I, I was
I
worried.
am.
I thought this panel wasn't going to hold anymore.
Oh, my apologies. We had a bit of a technical issue. Can
Okay.
you hear me, please?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you, Dr.
Omoye.
Yeah, Omo Ibirale, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, that's it.
Okay, okay, okay. That's a
Yes.
beautiful Edo name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So I will hand over to you. Is that okay? Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So
I
I
can
was
hear you.
saying I will hand over to you from here. Is that okay?
Okay, 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 okay. That's good.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Uh, Very interesting panel, and it is one that is very dear to my heart because I've been working in this area for the past 8 years now, and I've written a couple of articles as well as a forthcoming book on it. My area of research has to do with looking at the impact of conflict and violence on women, focusing specifically on the Nigerian Civil War. So in the course of my dissertation writing or research, I traveled to different parts of the eastern Nigeria where the conflicts actually erupted heavily and where women were, greatly impacted by it. Uh, and I want to commend Dr. Omoy Berale for, organizing this panel because it is one that is very important. It is important for us to always factor women into whatever, discourse, maybe intellectual or whatever public discourse. So I thank you very much for organizing this panel. And also thank you very much for inviting me to chair this panel. And I hope that the panelists will, in their presentation, give insights that will provoke discussions, interactions and the likes. So women, as we know, often get impacted by whether violence, conflict, or war. And as we've seen in the cases of the Liberian Civil War, Sierra Leonean Civil War, the Nigerian Civil War, and several violence that have occurred across the continent of Africa. Not only in Africa, also globally, women are affected. So today we will be listening to four presenters. Uh, the first presenter will be Momi and Sarah. They will be presenting on echoes of survival. So thank you very much for joining. The second presenter is Catherine, presenting on Stambeli Therapeutics. So thank you very much, Catherine. And third, we have Dahiru, who will be speaking on the impact of the Nigerian Civil War on women in northern part of Nigeria. And then lastly, we have Mubarak, who will be speaking on the aspect of traumatic memory. So just to lay out how we will begin today. Each presenter will have 12 minutes minimum and 15 minutes max to speak. So please ensure you keep to time. Because if we have 12 minutes minimum and we keep to time, it means that we are going to, the whole presentations will take about 48 minutes, right? Then that would give room for our audience, both here online and in person on ground, to ask questions. Because like I said, this is a very important panel, and I'm very sure that our audience have a lot of questions, a lot of thinking, a lot of provocative ideas that they would like to push forward. That would also help us to improve our papers that we'll be presenting today. So audience, please ensure that you listen to our presenters, and also make sure that you ask questions that would help to improve the papers that will be presented to us today. So without further ado, I think I would have to open the floor to Wumi and Sarah. Please, you have 12 minutes and 15 minutes maximum.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. And I echo your thanks to Dr. Omo for organizing this. It's tough that for two of us to spend 12 minutes, but I think what we will do, Sarah, is we will just give a very brief context. We want scholarship experience with women and conflict. So my name is Wumi, and I am at the University of Toronto completing my PhD in criminology and social legal studies. The data that we'll be presenting to you today is emerged data from my PhD research and also Sarah's master's research that she has just also recently completed. So the key question that we asked ourselves within our data was really, in what ways do women keep the memories and enduring psychological impact of their experiences of sexual violence that they've experienced in Kaduna State? Very brief context. And this is a very, it's a snapshot of just about 1 year of the kinds of violence that is being experienced in Kaduna: ethno-religious crisis, communal clashes, cattle rustling, kidnappings, which is the more recent one, reprisal attacks, banditry. And so between 2021 and 2022 alone, a total of 1,192 persons have lost their lives. Over 3,000 have been kidnapped. Over 13,000 animals unlawfully taken. Close to 1,000 people have sustained injuries, and 45 individuals experienced incidents of sexual assault. I would like to preface this by saying that these are the reports that got to government and the media report. As we know, in times of conflict, majority of these cases are not even reported. So by mid-2022, Kaduna was identified as the least secure state in Nigeria. I'd like to hand over now to next. Oh. Okay. I'd like to hand over to Sarah to talk about our methodology. But of course, in terms of the literature review, most of what we found, and which is why Kaduna for us is really important, our scholarship within the Nigerian context, the civil war, the Boko Haram insurgency, not a lot is being written on Kaduna, and we understand that the conflict is ongoing, the dynamics keep changing, and it's also very difficult to conduct research in such a terrain, but we bailed the cat and conducted this research. So the theoretical work that we used was we tried to look at this theory that was proposed by Bessel van der Kolk about the body keeping the score. And we found so many things in the literature about embodiment of trauma in conflict situations, how trauma is embodied both physically and psychologically, and that some of this trauma, and this was also something we found recently from indigenous scholarship, that trauma takes about 7 generations. So it is not only on the person that has experienced it, but it is passed on to 7 generations. And even that person experiencing it is experiencing 7 generations back of trauma. Sarah, over to you for the methodology.
All right, thank you, Wumi, and good afternoon, the chair of this session, and good afternoon, everyone in the room and everyone online as well. My name is Sarah Alalade, and I'm development practitioner, and I'm also a prospective PhD student, but I am still searching for the PhD to enroll in. So I am glad to present our methodology. So the setting of our methodology is, or context, is Kaduna State. And in Kaduna State, we collected qualitative data in Chukun local government and Kajuru local government of Kaduna State. So our study site was we chose this study site because of the prevalence of banditry in these areas. Yeah, so the methods we use in gathering this data, we used the FGD, focus group discussions. We used semi-structured interviews, and then we use a non-conventional method, which is a drama song. We call it the drama song. So, but for the FGD, we tried to ensure that we use participatory tools. You will know that because of the nature of the data, they are sensitive. And so we centered the participants in for the data collections. We centered their priorities so that we use collaborative storytelling, and we also used the drama song, which is really very important in a setting like that, because the cultural the drama song is we did it in collaboration with an existing body, women body, that is called the Zumunta Mata. And it is a way they use in expressing themselves and things that bother them in their religious worship centers. So we used it because we know that it is a sensitive data, and we require that their priorities are more taken into cognizance. And we want to also, while we delve into the findings, we also want to
sorry, Sarah, you have 3 minutes more, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So Wumi, could you give us just 1 minute of the drama song?
Yes, okay. Can everyone see the screen and hear the sound? No sound, but you can see the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I will try and correct that. But I'm sure on the screen you can see the word scrolling.
No.
Oh,
No,
you can. Oh, okay.
I think just to save time, if you are not able
Yeah.
to play the song, just
We'll
summarize
send the link in the
the
chat. Okay.
yes.
Okay, so I will delve straight into the findings, and for our findings, our data revealed persistent traumatic nightmares, auditory triggers, and fear responses, ruptured relationships, memory suppression due to stigma, ongoing cycle of abuse, leading to forced abortion and finger pointing, then denied paternity. And most of our findings we've been able to situate in literature that aligns with such findings in different literatures that has to do with embodiment of trauma and also gendering memory. So I think I will also hand over to Wumi to conclude since we have no time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. We had hoped to share some stories of particularly the ruptured friendships, which is something that we often don't talk about much in the scholarship on gender and conflict, stories about two friends, that one Muslim, one Christian, who could not go to each other's houses again because of the ethno-religious clashes. But just to quickly conclude, we conclude by saying that women remember wars through the scars on their bodies, the children they have born, the friendships that have been ruptured, and the stark reality in a new location, especially when they become refugees. And one key implication of our study is that memories can be found and kept in various modes, especially those beyond the usual Western mode of written text. And we also argue that memory can be kept even in absences and in silences when a woman decides not to speak. And we think that while keeping memories is important, especially for accountability purposes, we need to remember that forgetting is also a coping mechanism. And the problem with difficult archives, because we consider these memories as difficult archives, is that we constantly have to consider how it's an archive that is kept for 7 generations. And I think this should trigger the kinds of responses that are provided to women that experience this. So we also argue that these memories that these women, especially the video that we weren't able to play to you, that the women use these memories as incentives to participate in peace building initiatives and protection systems. Like some of the women told us that they now contribute money to buy bullets. Some of them are members of early warning, early response systems, all doing their part to protect their communities because, like they told us, they are tired of being the one bearing the brunt of conflict. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Umi and Sarah. That's very interesting presentation. I think now we need to quickly move forward to Catherine, please, you have the floor.
Check the speaker. Sure, I'm bringing it to you. Yes, sorry. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, it's fine, it's fine. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
please,
Yep.
please remember you have 12 minutes,
Thank
15
you.
minutes maximum.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yes.
We're just scrolling to the beginning. Thank you so much. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here in person and on Zoom. Thanks to my co-presenters. Thank you to Dr. Omonye and Dr. Taiwo for facilitating the panel. Thanks to all the volunteers and the facilitators for organizing this amazing conference this year. It's my first time, so I'm very grateful for the warm welcome. Slide, please. Thank you. So I just want to note, similar to the content of the first excellent paper, we'll be looking at some language that does involve violence towards Black women, as well as some racialized language from old archival sources. So do feel free to take a break and to take care of yourself as needed. Slide, please. And I want to start my talk today by asking a question that's at the core of my work, which is, what stories can be told of people treated as archival afterthoughts? How might the embodied, similar to the other paper, how might embodied therapeutic practices of enslaved women in Northern Africa honor and transform memories and lived realities of violence and war? Slide, please. Oh, that's good. Thank you, right here. I want to talk about Ambra, an enslaved person living in the Ottoman province of Tunis in the early 19th century, or the regions known today as Tunisia and Northern Africa. Captured in the medical journal of a French doctor to the Ottoman governor of Tunis, Ambra was described, slide please, as, quote, a young negress, end quote. Suffering from pain that shot from her shoulders down to her forearms, she had been unable to perform domestic labor. The doctor wrote that Ambra, quote, consented willingly to medical burning, and this is a phrase we should really be skeptical of given the power dynamics in the situation. Burning her back and shoulder 4 times, he noted that the marks oozed pus for nearly 2 months. The doctor alleviated Ambra's pain so that she could return to labor, so her enslaver would not have to. How did Ambra come to be captured in this doctor's diary? How might she have understood the violence and her own well-being? These are the questions that animate the work I do. Can you please go back? Thank you, right here. I'm a social, cultural, and intellectual historian of modern Africa with a focus on Northern Africa and Tunis. But my book project, Sites of Servitude, examines comparative slavery and racialization in the 18th and 19th century, with particular attention to Tunis's connections to the Niger River Bend, Hausa land, and Kanem Borno, so present-day Mali, northern Nigeria, and back in the day, Kanem Borno Empire stretched to present-day Chad. In contrast to the French doctor, I make the case that Ambra and the broader community of Tunis, racialized as Black, possess their own worldviews about the violence of slavery and their own well-being, merging religious and therapeutic knowledge from Hausa land, Kanem Borno Empire, and Tunis. Furthermore, I argue that this knowledge, which I'm calling here Buri Stembeli to emphasize both the Western, Central African, and Northern African connections, it was a primary means by which enslaved people confronted the memory and the lived reality of violence and war, particularly enslaved women, or excuse me, enslaved people gendered as women. Right here, thanks. Indeed, the destructive force of trans-Saharan slavery, escalating to a peak in the early 19th century in Tunis, was inextricably tied to transformations wrought by the Age of Revolutions, not only in the Caribbean and Americas, but also in Western and Central Africa and even the Arabian Peninsula in the early to mid-19th century. We need look no, sorry, you can just stay on that slide. We need look no further than Hausa land and Kanem Borno Empire, the 2 primary regions from which enslaved people were violently conveyed to Tunis. It also must be noted that the devastation taking place here was also tied very directly to transatlantic slavery, which peaked in the decades prior in the 18th century. So with this context in mind, right here is good. With this context in mind, I argue that enslaved people in Tunis racialized as Black, whether born and raised in Tunis or forcibly conveyed from Hausa land and Kanem Borno, used embodied therapeutic practices to confront, resist, and transcend the violence of slavery. Slide, please. Right here is great. If you could zoom out a little bit just so that we can see the whole slide. If not, that's okay. I just want to show here that we're going to be looking at 2 sources One is a French colonial source. So we want to think definitely about why this source is located in France and not in Tunisia, thinking about colonial histories. But we're also going to be looking at a letter written by a Fulani Islamic reformer named Ahmed ibn Akadi at Timbuktawi. And it's a letter he wrote to the Bey of Tunis in 1808 that is condemning the group of people that he describes as Sudan Tunis, or the Blacks of Tunis in Arabic. We're going to go ahead and start doing some counter reading together. You can go one more slide down. This is great. So let's start first with Timbuktawi's letter to the Bey of Tunis, or the Ottoman governor of Tunis. Ahmed ibn Akadi at Timbuktawi, a Fulani Islamic reformer from the Mopti region, so in present-day Mali, visited Tunis in 1808 on his way back from pilgrimage in the Arabian Peninsula. But before departing Tunis, he penned a scathing letter condemning a group of people he called, quote, the Blacks of Tunis, or Sudan Tunis. One more slide down. For Timbuktawi, Blackness did not mean skin color specifically, but rather it was a way to identify those he considered properly Muslim. And in particular, he was targeting religious and therapeutic ceremonies like Buri. But in contrast to Timbuktawi's allegation, Buri emerged out of Hausaland and was comprised of an Islamized pantheon of spirits. And Hausaland had already been Islamized for centuries, since at least the 8th century. So religion was not about one's profession or rejection of a creed, but a way for elites like Ahmed ibn Akadi Timbuktawi to naturalize hierarchies or social status. Enslaved practitioners violently conveyed to Northern Africa adopted Buri in Tunis by incorporating local North African saints and spirits, and thus becoming known as Sembeli. Furthermore, Buri Sembeli threatened to destabilize racialized as well as gendered hierarchies in the province. Specifically, Timbuktawi's critique of Buri centered on what he considered to be non-normative practices of gender and sexuality. He wrote at length on the, quote, blasphemous leadership of the Arayef, or the Arifa, and to Buri practitioners, Arayef were highly regarded spiritual beings, not humans, who led ceremonies as gender-fluid intermediaries between the earthly and spiritual realms. And in earthly terms, they were typically embodied by formerly enslaved elder Black women, but they could be of any gender, including men. And this picture is from the present day, early 21st century, but just to note these connections into the present. Ultimately, the aim of Buri therapeutics was not to seek a cure, like the aims of the French doctor, but rather for the sick person and their jinn, or their spirit, to coexist peacefully in the same body. Slide, please. How might enslaved inhabitants of Tunis, like Ambra, have confronted the memory and lived reality of physical, psychic, and sexualized violence? Let's return to the doctor's journal in which Ambra appeared. So a few pages after Ambra's forced appearance, the doctor hails another patient as, quote, again, a young negress. He wrote that she had been forcibly conveyed from the nation of Borno. He added that she had fallen into slavery in the house of an elite in Tunis. Slide, please. The doctor used a skeptical and passive voice, saying that the woman was, quote, presented to me, right here is great. He only agreed to treat the patient due to her persistence to make him understand, quote, the nature of her pain. The doctor's description of the subsequent medical burning is viscerally painful to read even centuries after. Did the woman consent to this procedure?
I'm
1
sorry.
minute?
You have 3 more minutes. 3 more
Thank
minutes,
you so much.
please.
Thank you so much. How might
Yeah.
she have understood this medical procedure or what was happening to her? We don't know for certain, and the doctor doesn't mention asking her for permission. Instead, he wrote that upon beginning the procedure, please stay on the slide, thank you. The woman resisted. Thank you. Instead, he wrote that upon beginning the procedure, the woman resisted and could not be restrained, quote, despite the effort of 2 strong men. So this is a really powerful act of selfhood, of expression, despite being involuntarily subjected to a very painful medical procedure. Although the doctor's voice is mediating this passage, the woman's embodied actions belie anything but passive or inactive archival afterlife. This unnamed patient, alongside Ambra from the opening of the talk, likely belonged to a community of Buri practitioners, people who hailed from Hausaland or Kanum Borno, or perhaps people born and raised in Tunis. If so, Buri practitioners would have treated the violence of bondage using a very different epistemology than that of the French physician, who could only see his enslaved patients suffering through the lens of labor and productivity. I'm going to stop here, but I'm happy to talk about present-day anti-Black racism in Tunisia in the question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for keeping to
Thank
time.
you. Oh, sure. I'll do this.
You actually gave us a bonus of 2 minutes. So thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. And also thank you for your very, very interesting presentation, which reminds us of the violence that had occurred, since the 15th century on the continent of Africa. So thank you. We really appreciate that. Now we have to move very, very quickly to Dahiru. Please, Dahiru, online.
It's not.
I think you joined.
I said you have gone off.
Tayu is not online at the moment.
Yeah, Dahiru was online earlier, but I think he is having internet issues. So now I think we should move to Mubarak, please. Mubarak in the room?
Yes, sir, he's in the room.
Thank you so much.
Yes, let's Mubarak then. I mean, while we wait for to rejoin.
Thank you so much. My name is Mubarak Chukul. This work is part of my larger PhD research. So I welcome any comments because observation that we already see to be a publishable article. So my work is on the traumatic memory of Shiites women in northern Nigeria, as well as in search of peace building. Shiites are a sect or group of people that emerged immediately after the 1979 Iranian Revolution. For those people who are not aware about the Iranian Revolution, it's a revolution that came up to overthrow the Shah dynasty. But soon after the emergence of this revolution, it spread to most countries in the world. So northern Nigeria was part of it. But in this part of this country, the Shiite members were operated under the Izala movement. That is, we have still in that 1979, we have the emergence of another group which the Shiite operates. But from the 1980s and 1960s, then the Shiite broke up to have another group called the Muslim Brotherhood, and later on transformed into what we call the Islamic movement of Nigeria. Next slide, please. So overall impact of this discussion about the 2015 clash between the military and the Shiite members in Zaria. So immediately after the clash between the military and the Shiites, there was so much issues surrounding women, because women constitute like a very large percentage of the Shiite movement. This is because the women in the Shiites played a certain role of mobilizations, and they have a lot of responsibilities within the Shiites. Next row, please. Okay. After this attack, there was some public perception, and this public perception was about how people look at Shiites as anti-Islam, because this is like an intra-Muslim crisis, which within the Muslim society, some people are saying that these Shiite people are not even real Muslims. So after this attack, some section of the society perceived Shiites as like they were happy with what happens with them, because it's like an Islamic contestation of legitimacy, because some people within the Muslim society were still looking at Shiite like they were not Muslims. I have some quote from the Sultan of Sokoto where he has described them as terrorists, because I have the publication with me. Still within the Muslim society, some people are saying that despite being the Muslims, they were not real Muslims. So here is the contestation. the contestation is that society or the government is looking at Shiites like an armed group that wanted to legitimize themselves as a government within a state because they don't have the belief of the Nigerian constitution, they don't have the belief of the Nigerian leadership. So that is the board of contestation within the Shiite movement. Then here in 2015, we have a program called the passing out parade of the young military officers in depot in Zaria. So along the way, the army chief wanted to have his way after the closing ceremony. Well, that day coincided with the Shiites, what they call the Muzahara. They have a program on that day. But according to what some of these Shiite people, the members that I interviewed, they told me that anytime they are having their procession, they wrote to the military or they wrote to the security forces that we are going to have a program on so date. So unfortunately for them, that day coincided with the passing out parade of the young military officers at Zaria. So on his way, then because he has to pass through PZ Road in Zaria for him to go to the Chindid depot in the Chindid barrack there. So they block the road. They say he's not going to pass because for us who are in the north, we know the tradition of the Shiite people is that whenever they're having procession, they overtake some space on the road. So that is the bone of contention, whereby the military was saying, no, you cannot block the army chief of a country who controls the entire army of a country that he cannot pass. So that is the genesis of the killing. So on that spot, some people were killed at the Husseiniya, others were killed at the Jalesu, where the headquarters, the main house of the leader, Ibrahim Azazaki is. All right, next. All right, so this okay, the previous slide, please. So they have like three main camps, whereby their main activities was centered toward that area. For example, you have the Dambo, you have the Gelesu, and you have the Husseiniya. So in all these three places, the military went and ransacked those places. And I've told you earlier that women constitute large percentage of Shiite members. So along these kind of clashes, here the women became at the center. Maybe next slide, please. Okay, yeah. So the killing here, for example, at Husseiniya, according to the sources I got from the interview, she told me that from there in the Husseiniya, like more than 70 women were killed because there are many in that place, because it coincided with a kind of remembrance, because they have many occasions within their activities. Any remembrance, they gather. Any remembrance, they gather there. So this killing of their members caused the women to have a very destructive memory, because by the time the women were being arrested, because some of them were arrested and beaten, dehumanized, now it becomes an issue that people are talking about it. Because I was able to, before I was able to have interview with the Shiite members, I have to pass some serious connections before they were able to open their discussion with me. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, this photo I got it from the BBC website about the killing. Like a woman called Jungmaker, one of the leading Shiite women leaders, because she had the Sisters Forum. A Sisters Forum is a forum that handles the activities of women. For that woman alone, she told me that she lost 5 children of her. And that 5 children, I think 3 of them are graduated from UK. They all finished from UK. And that was the month they came back and they went for that occasion in Zaire. So they all died there. In fact, even in my community, I have people, we call it, there's a particular suburb area in my town, whereby I know that more than 100 in that village, because they went to Zaire for that occasion, and most of them, they didn't come back alive. So they were killed, a lot of them. Yeah, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, here, you can see that despite the atrocities by the security forces, because for any attempt to have an interaction with the military, that is a no-go area. Many commissions of inquiry, like 2-3 commissions of inquiry were being established from the federal government to the states were established. But none of these commission of inquiry was their white papers were not used. Then the human rights commissions, the World Human Rights Commission also have their own reports, but those things were all tagged. So these are the issues that I try to bring out from the horrifying situation of these women. Some of these women told me that after they were being taken by the military, beaten, stripped naked, they are put in a large vehicle. They call it closed black marriage. Yeah, something like that. I know in Hausa we call it shiga babi or something like that. They put them there, taking them to like a concentration camp. Like, okay, you see more of this. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, still on this public persecution. So after this incident, now the society, because like 70, like 80 to 70, or I can say 90% of the Muslim society in the North are not happy with the activities of the Shiites. More especially those who didn't belong to the Shiite sects. So when this thing happens, some people become like they were happy with it. In fact, some people were even celebrating. So in the process of this celebration, the identities of Shiites, mostly they wear black clothes, most especially the women. They wore black clothes. So for these public persecutions, they have to stop wearing those black clothes. Because one of them was telling me that after these incidents, wherever they are passing in the streets, they will be telling them, look at this, these are children of Brutai. Like they were naming them after the children of the former chief of army staff there. So in some places, they were being stoned in marketplaces, at motor park stations. So the stigma was too much for them. They cannot handle. So they have to stop wearing those clothes they have been putting for a while. And you realize that with this public persecution, one of them, she was telling me that, because I think some of us who were aware about the situation, that even after they were being killed by the military, you still find some people that within the public domain going after the dead bodies of these people, removing a gold ring for the dead bodies. People were marching on their what? On their dead bodies. So that's how she was narrating, and she was crying when she was telling me this. Most especially the lady that lost her three children. And they told us a lot of families were
I'm so sorry. Can you begin to summarize now, because you have just two more minutes.
I think on the last speaker, we still have the Dahiru's time. We can still use it.
Because no, Dahiru is back. Yes.
All right. Can we go to the search? All right. Okay. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Maybe the search for peace building. Can we go to? So all this account of some Shiite women which are interviewed. Okay, we go to the search for peace here. You see, despite the aspect of being dehumanized, subjected to so much mental health issues, these women still persist for peace. You realize that, like, the Shiite women is an organized group. They have a lot of activities. So these women still engage in the empowerment of other women. Even if you're not part of them, they brought the issue of interfaith peace building, try to like create a peaceful harmony between the Muslims and the Christians, trying to create like teaching their fellow women like to be fitness, to be like, because they also have a wing they call a harissa. Harissa is the women wing of how they give themselves a protection, as well as supporting each other, more especially when it comes to the issue of self-reliance, assisting people when it comes to wedding. Because I interviewed a woman, she was telling me that they try to identify women who are about to get married and could not get the issue of weddings, issues of matrimonial issues. So they had to go and support poor family with that one. I think because in the interest of time, maybe I can stop here, but I welcome any suggestion that can enrich this to be a publishable article. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very, very much for keeping to time. Exactly 12 minutes. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting and very insightful too. Now, Dahiru, are you available? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm.
Please let's have your presentation. You have just 12 minutes. I think he's having connection issues over there.
Maybe tell him to turn off his video.
Network is even bad.
Yeah. Oh, he's gone. I think maybe we give him another 2 to 3 minutes. Then if he's not back, we go to questions and answers. But before he gets back, if that would ever happen, I would like to commend the presenters for their very, very interesting presentations. I really enjoyed your presentations. And I took some things away from your talks. With Wumi and Sarah's presentation, you made some very interesting remarks. And those remarks, as you were saying them, reminded me of my experience on the field while I was doing my research on the impact of the Nigerian Civil War on Biafran women in the core of Biafra. And one of the things you said is that women remember the impact of war through the scars on their bodies. That's so true. For those who were physically affected or impacted by violence, some women even had to show me, on their hands and, certain parts of their bodies. I mean, parts that are very revealing, their legs and the likes. And those things actually remind them of their experiences in the Civil War between 1967 and 1970. And also, there's something you mentioned that forgetting is a coping mechanism. Even until today, some of us, some kinds of experiences that we've had, maybe with friends or family members and the likes, whenever people want to mention them, we say, no, don't talk about it. I don't want to hear anything about it. So it's a mechanism, we don't want to keep going backward to, those sad, destructive kind of memories. Maybe it could be as a result of violence, it could be as a result of bad relationship, it could be as a result of anything, war and the likes. Yeah. So thank you very much for giving us those nuggets. They are very important, and they are reminders of the fact that women suffer a lot, in situations of war, violence, conflict, domestic violence, or what have you. So thank you very much for that. And then, Catherine, thank you very much for taking us back to, an event that happened and continues to shape the lives of many people on the continent of Africa since the 15th century, and how women, especially in Tunisia, right, were impacted by these things. And I also liked the fact that you covered other aspects too, mentioning some other Muslim societies, including northern Nigeria. Thank you very much. Your research is really, really broad, and I hope that the people seated in this room would have some kind of tete-a-tete with you on that would help to improve the quality of that paper. It's already a very quality paper, but I hope that our people would have one or two things to say in that sense. And then Mubarak, thank you a very interesting presentation on on Shiites, movements and women's involvement. This is a very interesting area, but one which we often overlook. When we think about movements like that, like religious movements, we think about the men that are involved in those movements, forgetting the fact that the people who do the mobilizing, of members, the people who give out resources being used by the leaders of those movements, the people who look for money, the people who take care of children, the people who help to sustain these movements are women, right? And that played out in almost all the wars and violence and likes that we can think of, not only on the continent of Africa, but across the globe. When you think about nationalist movements, you think about civil wars, you think about violence, you think about protests and the likes, women are always at the forefront, right? So thank you very much for that very interesting presentation. And I learned something like a key word from you, which you used, called destructive memory. That's a very, very important word, which I think is very much applicable to women and war, women and religious movements, women and protest and the like. So thank you for leaving that key word with us in this room. So now I think we don't have much time. We have about 19, we still have about 25 minutes. I will now open the floor to the people in the room and the people online. Yes, I think Dr. Omoy Berale can coordinate the questions from there. Please. She's not in the room?
I'm here. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please, I can hear you. Please coordinate, coordinate the
I was
questions from the
asking
room.
how many can we take?
We still have about...
That's fine. I just want to know how
I
many.
think we still have about 30 minutes. We still have about 30 minutes here. So we can take like 10 questions.
Okay. How many?
Each 2 minutes.
Okay, 1, 2,
Yeah.
yeah, 3, 4, 5. So, number 1.
We have 5 persons here. There are 2 people online.
So, okay, we have Udo. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, please. I apologize if I'm bastardizing your name, but you're number 6. Then Pelumi is number 7. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, number 1. Sorry.
And then we have Odo. We have Odo here online.
Yes, Odo. Yes, I've acknowledged that.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fatima Abdullahi. So I have some questions to Mubarak. I have some questions and some observations that will help him to enrich the paper. Number 1, during your presentation, if I heard you right, you said Shia started in the 1980s or 1970s. I don't know, do you mean the general Shia or Shia in Nigeria? So I think you need to define what is even Shia, and you trace the history when Shia started in Islam within the Muslim community, and you link it with how it comes to Nigeria. Then secondary, did the military, when we are narrating, did the military purposely targeted these women? We know that they used to move with both men and women, so it's going to be very difficult as casualties to say it's going to affect only men. It affects both men and women. And then thirdly, did you contact, because your narration is more of one-sided narration. You are just more of narrating what the Shiite told you. So you have to ask the general community and even the military to hear their views so that you can relate the information. And then how did the Shia sees other Muslims? You said other Muslims are seeing the Shia and non-Muslims. So what about the perception of the Shiite to other Muslims? Are they also seeing them as a Muslim or the non-Muslims? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mubarak, would you really want to respond to that in 1 minute, please?
Okay, I will take more questions.
Yeah, after question,
Do we have any other question for Dr. Mubarak?
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Al-Qasim Haris Al-Qasim, and I, first of all, would like to say that all the presenters, as well as the chair, the panelists, deserve a pat on the back. And I have some observations, or let's say questions for Mubarak, the second presenter, I think. He made mention of the fact that the women folk, or the women, constitute the largest number of Shiites. I want to ask him how he arrived at that conclusion. Secondly, he said he conducted an interview with the Shiites, neglecting the other part of the drama, especially when he made mention of the imbroglio, that trouble that happened in Kaduna when the commander, when Buratai, I think, was passing through that areas, and the Shiites were harassing them. So he should have conducted an interview with the military to know their own stand, their own opinion of the story. And I think there was a time, that's the key, in the 90s, early or mid 90s, that the key was arrested and incarcerated. He remained in prison for some time. I was eagerly waiting for him to make reference to a situation, but he did not. And I think it is, I shouldn't use this word, but I think the paper is somehow limited to a kind of an interpretation, or let's say to a kind of a perspective. He should have taken his time to broaden the horizons of the paper. Like the first speaker told him that he should have provided a generic view of the argument of the argument, and then he should have narrowed it down to Nigeria, to the Shiites in particular. And then he made mention of one fact, that the Shiites came to institute a kind of an Islamic empire, if I can recall well. And I think the movement, when it came to Nigeria, it didn't come in the cloth of Shiism, because everybody stands in a very direct opposition with Shiism. A lot of people don't subscribe to the notion of, or to the doctrines of the Shiites. So they brought it into Nigeria in a very clever way. And it is after people embraced it, and they gathered a lot of followership, that they unveiled the reality, they unveiled the mystery. So after the demystification of their true doctrines, that a lot of people, and especially we have scholars, yes, in Kano and in the north, so they now divorce themselves from the teachings, from the teachings of Shiism. So you should have talked about this. You should have clarified this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for your question. Can we have the next person, please?
All right, thank you. I'm Samuel Wycliffe. Based on the presentation, they have something reflecting, that is trauma. But in the course of their presentation, I don't know whether I know it very well. What are the implications of this trauma? At least we need to, it has to be clear. You have taken, yes, they have been subjected to all sort of treatment, raping, and so on, but what are the implications? does that trauma prevent them from maybe women development and so on? Because if somebody is under trauma, maybe somebody that's acquiring education can decide to study education. What are those the implication of those trauma? Then even though Mubarak, now is just some suggestions. I think there is to have a section, even though what you presented is just a slide, but we don't know that in the paper it has captured. There's need for a section to deal with misconception and misrepresentation of the shared movement in Nigeria. We don't have something like that. From that, it will not give us the base of the whole thing. Who are the shared? What is the? How did government interpret them? How did people? What is the perception of other Islamic sects about the Shia? So there should be a section for misconception and misrepresentation of the shared. Then the next thing is the destructive nature. I think there is need to, if possible, from the statistic based on the figure you have done, there is need to know, okay, how many women have been affected, then children also, so that then even though you need to put that, even though you are focusing on women, the men were also affected, but your central focus is on the women. I think things like that need to reflect in the paper. So other things have been raised by the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those contributions. Very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. May I go? Okay, thank you so much. My name is Chisom Ogamba. So, firstly, I want to appreciate the presenters. They did an amazing job because, there's an ongoing erasure of women. So I like to say that women are the greatest casualties in any destruction of order. War, climate change, any destruction, women are the greatest casualties. And whenever, such discussions are ongoing, we just hear about the men. So there's an erasure going on. So this is very important work. But then, like the previous speaker mentioned about trauma. So there's something called trauma response. It's even a theory. I think Freud has something about trauma response. And in like the title of this panel, how do women remember violence and wars? I think the first speaker mentioned silence. Silence is also a form of trauma response, but there are also, other examples. For example, we have quality of life. What's their quality of life? Has it reduced compared to their contemporaries, in other regions? So that should also be explored, to reconcile with the title of, this panel. So, but that's everything I have to say. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Helen Uga.
Please, if you are asking questions, please, if you have questions to be directed to any of the presenters, please mention their name and ask your question so that we know who is receiving what. Thank you very much.
All right, my name is Helen Uga. My question is directed to the only panelist I listened to, in the person of Mubarak. Yeah. Okay, I think he did a little bit of generalization in his presentation, in the sense that, of course, the Shiite movement is kind of popular, but not everybody knows what it stands for, right? So my question is, as an Islamic movement, what is the philosophy of the Shiite? But I feel that an understanding of their philosophy will help us understand the nature of attacks they've received, like why the attack occurred in the first place, and how the women have been able to move beyond the trauma of the attack. So my question is, what is the philosophy of the Shiites? And then considering the fact that, considering the subjugation of women in Islam and in the North, I might be wrong about that, but how are women then the strength of Shiites? Especially when we consider the fact that the movement was founded by Muslim men. Because he did say in his presentation that women are the strength of Shiites. So if women are the strength, but the movement was founded by men, how did women become to get to the point of wielding so much power in the movements? Then also during the attacks, where were the men, right? Where were the men? And what was or were their roles pre, during and post the attack? And what have been their efforts at peace building so far? I know that the emphasis of your research is on women, right? But as much as it's on women, men are also members of the movement. So I just think that if you could give us like maybe a recap or a summary of like men's role, because you cannot just pick one over the other without indicating the extent to which the role of one gender affected or shaped the outcome of the other. And the other questions I have here is, okay, yeah. So do they work together with the women or do they work alone? So do the women work in autonomy from the men, or do they work together? And then lastly, fine, I understand that your focus is on the women, right? Well, you mentioned young women that were killed, women that were left bereaved of their children, of their female children. But where then are the young men? Were the young men killed, right? And what have they all been doing since after the attack as a way of mitigating like future attacks on them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we still have any questions in the room? If not, let's have the question from Odo, please.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Odo John. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I will say well done, Dr. Mubarak. I can see your paper has generated so many reactions from the audience. I must commend your effort for delving into such a very controversial area of study that touches very well on human rights, very painful human rights abuses. But still, I would like you to be a bit dispassionate about the study. Maybe if you can detach yourself from the event, because you were so involved, we could see you in the work, because you constantly made use of first person pronoun, I, my community, my this. So maybe if you can detach yourself from the study, it will help to enrich the work. And also, if you also be a bit objective, at least if you could, I know human rights abuse is very painful, but you could also discuss a bit of the excesses of the Shiite also, so that you can balance your argument. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you. Do we still have any other question? Is Balumi, do you have any question or contribution or insights that you want to add to the presentation?
Yeah, the Zoom engineer has insisted I should talk because she unmuted me. So let me just make my remarks. I didn't want to talk already anyway because the members of the auditorium, the members of the audience have said a lot. So I said I will not say anything again. But since the Zoom engineer has permitted me to talk, I just want to ask Sarah and Wumi what they have to say about resistance as a response to trauma. You know, of course, they spoke about memories, trauma memories among women. And this is my question. How do women respond in resistance to factors that inflict pains and trauma on them? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Do we have any other question in the room? Okay, so after this question, please, Mubarak, Dr. Catherine, and I think Wumi and Sarah, please respond to the questions put across to you. Yes, please go ahead, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Hello, this is Catherine. I just wanted to ask a question to Mubarak also, or maybe more of a comment, but it's a kind, not that everything's been unkind, but I actually want to note that in many ways we do need to talk about our positionality. So I feel like actually what I appreciated about this presentation was the passion you were bringing to the topic. So I think instead of I actually kind of disagree with one of the prior speakers. I think I appreciated the passion in first person, and I think it would be great to explicitly address your positionality. What's your relation to the topic? And I feel like we didn't have a lot of time to go into our presentation, so that might have been cut. But for me as well, I think positionality is a big thing that I want to address in all of our work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, do we still have any other question? If no, please, Mubarak, can you? Okay, I think Wumi, I think you had a question for Catherine, right?
Yes, yes, actually. Thank you, Chair. I actually, because it's a little bit off, so I thought Catherine would read the question. So, Catherine, thank you for your presentation. I was really intrigued to, hear about the Bori worshippers, because that's also something that I picked up in doing my doctoral research, and I wanted to know your thoughts about how, well, my argument. So one of my arguments in my thesis is that, tracing the Bori worship and the place of women within it, I sort of argued, along the lines of Oyewumi that pre-jihad northern Nigeria was, had fluidity in roles and gender classification. And that, with the Bori worship and the role that women played there, that the role of the protector, was not gendered, was fluid. And so people moved in between sexes in playing that role as they also manifested, the different powers in the Bori worship. So I wanted to just know your thoughts on that, but it's something we can actually pick up. I intend to send you an email because I have not found a lot of scholars on Bori worship. And so I'm really intrigued that you brought it up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for mentioning that.
Dr. Bello, sorry to interject.
Yes, please.
Sorry about that. And we have two more. We have someone online, Mr. Ike, and Mubarak also have a question. Can we take that? Is it possible?
Okay, let's quickly take that. We have 15 minutes, but I'd like Mubarak to respond, adequately to the questions, put across to him. And I think Wumi also received a question from someone, and I think Dr. Catherine might also want to respond. So let's have Ike and one other person that have a question in the room.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
1 minute.
Okay,
1 minute.
I just want to reciprocate the gesture to Catherine by also asking her some issues here. I saw in your presentation you talk about the issue of Kano here, because I came from the northern part of the country. So can we say that that issue of slavery, which you talk about, does it have a root to say that the blacks in the diaspora, more especially in the 18th century, or in this within the period of your study, you talk about the Ottoman. So are you saying that they also have their roots from Kano to Tunis off to Ottoman? And I saw where you talk about religious practices and medical issues, which the women were used during Mediterranean. Was it like a kind of enchantment, of a kind of protection, so that they should not be abducted into slavery? Or what do you mean by that? And I will be happy if you can go back to the last sentence in your conclusion. There's a phrase which I need you to explain, something like a blind race colony, which time was not given to you to explain that in the last sentence, in your conclusion. Oh. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's have Ike, please, one minute to ask your question, please.
I think, thank you very much. I think the last speaker has actually read my mind and reflected my mind on his question. I think the presenter's response to that will do justice to what I have in my mind. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So Mubarak, we come back to you. You have 4 minutes to respond to the questions put across to you. Then we move to me, then we move back to Catherine, please.
All right.
Go ahead.
I have almost getting to 25 questions and observations here. This shows, yeah, this means that I'm happy. Seriously, I'm happy because so it means that the paper is interesting, and I am happy that this thing can help in building the paper. I'm really happy. So, like what the first speaker said by Dr. Fatima, who is my teacher and also my mentor, I'm happy for this. Actually, I will, in the main text of the paper, I just spoke, I just have just like 2 lines of this origination of this Shiite, but I would take it back and have that root on the emergence of Shia. Then I was not saying that Shia didn't come to Nigeria in the 70s, but I'm trying to connect it with the Iranian Revolution of 1979. And that was the genesis of the entry point of Shiite in Nigeria, not in the, because Shiite had been there since the death of the Prophet. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad, that is the emergence of Shia, the Khawarij. That is the genesis of the Shia there. But the entry point into mainstream Nigerian discourse from the Iranian Revolution. Then the issue of contacting the military. Actually, contacting the military in this aspect is a very, very serious issue, because even the human rights organization will not be having access to get it. For you to even get a clearance from the defense headquarters to interview them is another. It will take you more than 10 years. You cannot even get the clearance there. So that is another issue. So if they cannot give you an audience, that is, if they have a one-sided narration, it's their own fault. Then the issue of CI seeing the Muslims, well, that is a controversy. But for me here, the way how Catherine was saying that, actually, let me tell you, people, I didn't belong to Shiites. So I'm not giving them sympathy here or what. I'm just putting myself as a researcher. So my position is clear. I'm just going to the fact there. No, I'm not a Shiite. But I'm just putting myself as a researcher with my position as a clear that I'm going there to bring the fact there. Then the issue of Al-Qasim. Yeah, you talk about military, almost the same issue with what Dr. Fatima has said. Then the issue of trauma I accepted all the comments. Then issues like trauma, which you said, does it hinder development by Dr. Wycliffe, Samuel? Actually, if my discussion, there was a section where I said, despite these atrocities, they still build their life trying to make peace with the society. But that trauma is still there. And in my last sentence in conclusion, I tried that these women still need a psychosocial support. That they need a trauma healing, which the woman, there's a woman who lead the Sisters Forum. I think, in fact, I don't know that woman. I also saw her on YouTube. She was interviewed by Al Jazeera. Then I said, I have to find this woman. Why is she? So I tried to make contact within the Shiite community. Then they finally connected me with the woman. They said she's the one who leads the Sisters Women within the Shiite. So I met her in our home in Malali, in Kaduna, and we have that discussion. So they are taking care of that issue of trauma issues. Then general comments. I love the question, the issue you raised, that most of us, we should have like a clear concept of this trauma healing theory, which we have like a general problem among us. Then the issue of Dr. Helen on positionality, I think that one has been answered. But the philosophy of Shiite here, this philosophy of Shiite, it now goes back to what Dr. Fatima has now said, giving a clear concept of the Shiite in the first place. So it's like a debate that comes up immediately after the days of the prophets. So I think that is maybe the linking gap that I have to go back and look at it. Then issue of human rights by Dr. Udo. Actually, I have already made my mind clear that my position is clear that I'm going there with an objective mind, and I'm trying to do justice with this ambit of the research. Then I said all other comments because there are too many. So I'm happy with all these comments. That I know they are going to help me in building this paper. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very, very much for that brief response. You've actually done justice to all the questions put across to you. But I want to remind you that most of the things that the audience actually said had to do with ways in which you can improve the paper, right? Just suggestions and the likes. And I appreciate the fact that you jotted everything down and you said that you would address them in the paper later. Thank you very much for that. Let's move to Wumi. Wumi, you have 2 minutes to respond to the question put to you, then we move to Dr. Catherine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will take the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the questions to us has to do with the implication of trauma, trauma response, and resistance to trauma. Now, for our findings, we mentioned persistent traumatic nightmares. So the survivors, to give context to it, most of them are survivors of sexual violence as a result of the bandit attacks and kidnappings. So they usually have these nightmares that makes them to relieve their experiences. And this is one of the implications of trauma. They continue to relive their experiences and have nightmares about what happened to them and the violence that they had gone through. For trauma response and resistance to trauma, I would like to answer them together. Like for auditory triggers and fear when relieving their
all right, thank you very
relieving
much. Thank you very much for that question. I'm sorry that I had to cut you just to give room to accommodate one more response from Dr. Catherine. Please, Dr. Catherine, can you respond to the question put across to you by Wumi? Then we conclude.
Okay. Can I be heard? Yes, I think so. Okay, thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Wumi, for the question. And thank you, Dr. Mubarak, as well. So in terms of pre-jihad Northern Nigeria and the question of like gender binary systems or gender multiplicity, I really appreciate you bringing in Dr. Oyewumi's work. I think that's extremely important for thinking about understanding or conceptualizing gender historically, and especially you mentioned slightly earlier time period than what I'm looking at. That's certainly informing what's going on by the period of jihad and revolution. And in terms of scholars working on Uri in historical terms, a scholar that comes to mind is Dr. Ismail Montana. And he's from northern Ghana, and he works a lot on the legacies of Uri in northern Africa, specifically Tunisia. He looks at Timbuktu's work in particular, so I'm happy to connect you with him if that's of interest. I work closely with him as well. And thank you both, Sarah and Wumi, Dr. Wumi and Dr. Sarah, for the presentations. Thank you, Dr. Mubarak. Can you remind me of your question? Oh, present day resonance. Yeah. Okay, so present day, so colorblind Tunisia. So Tunisia in the decolonization period under President Bourguiba, he determined that Tunisia's national demographic, similar to France, would be race blind and colorblind, that no mention of blackness or whiteness or any race would be mentioned in the constitution. So that's legally the case, that Tunisia is race blind. No one talks about blackness or whiteness. But in practice, Tunisia's extremely racist. Tunisia's very, very anti-Black racist. And in just the past year, President Kais Saied delivered an address live streamed on Facebook deploring what he called, quote, like illegal migrants coming from south of the Sahara to pollute Tunisia's, quote, Arab and Islamic identity, which has given everyone free license to basically commit violence and murder against anyone perceived to be Black in the country, whether they're from Tunisia and lived there their whole lives or generations, because Black Tunisians are indigenous to Tunisia as well in the southern part of Tunis, or have recently come from Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Sudan. And so there's a lot of this kind of these legacies, or maybe what Dr. Wumi and Dr. Sarah were talking about trauma response. So these legacies of assuming that anyone who is perceived as Black must have been enslaved in the past, even though that's not the case. And then in the present, that memory is giving people free license to then enact further trauma. So Tunis right now is in very bad shape. I have a slide of a anti-racist activist who's just been recently jailed for no reason. And we still haven't heard from her. She's just in jail. So it's really bad. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that response. And thank you. I want to thank all panelists, for their presentations. This is a very, very important kind of panel. And I liked the way the audience also responded. It wasn't just a one-way thing. It was a two-way thing, right? You made your presentations and the audience also responded. So I want to appreciate the presenters for their presentations. Thank you very much for everything. And also thank you to Dr. Monye for organizing this. I wish you all the best. Thank you. Nice to meet everyone. And bye. Thank you.